Hi, everyone. I see that people are logging in. Great, so many of you around. Well, hello, everyone, and thanks so much for joining this webinar on professional emails and how to write them in English. Let me start by sharing my screen. And just a sec. And here we go. So the broad topic is how to write professional emails in English. And of course, this is a very broad topic. So I'll show you exactly what we'll be covering today. But first, I want to answer these two questions. Who am I and what am I doing here? First, I want to talk about you, what the audience is today, a little bit about who I am and what Talaera is. And the reason I want to talk about you is because so many people signed up for this webinar. It's actually the second one we do on the same topic, because I know so many of you couldn't join the first time. That was a month ago. And we just wanted to give the chance to more people to be able to join. And you guys are coming from very different backgrounds. You all have very different levels of English, and you also have different roles. So this is not going to be the same experience for everyone. Just want you to be aware of it. But I will try to speak slowly and repeat the more complex concepts a couple of times. This is aimed at not native speakers. So if you are a native speaker, there will be a lot of things that you might already know, but I will also give tips that are applied for all kinds of speakers. That's as far as I wanted to talk about the audience and a little bit about me. My name is Paola, and I have been a business English instructor for a few years. I've been an English instructor for as long as I can remember. And I combine languages with psychology and how to be more effective and productive, not only through communication, but also through strategic management. And then I have been with Talaera for a few years now, and what we do is we offer online business English training to professionals, not only corporate students, but also individuals. And if you're curious, I want to quickly show you what it looks like. We work on a platform that we developed. It's our own platform, and there students and teachers connect on one-on-one sessions so they can see each other and work on very specific needs. So today we are going to talk about business emails, but it could be literally anything. So the student would share their needs and what they need to work on. Could be accent, meetings, phone conversations, literally anything. And then they develop like an online training session. If you're curious about this, I can give you more information later, but let's go to the next question. What am I doing here today? When we asked you to submit the form, there was a question at the end that asked you what in particular are you interested in, if you had a very specific question. And a lot of them had to do with writing shorter emails. So these were some of the questions. Like, how can I write shorter and engaging emails? How to write short emails, useful phrases to shorten standard emails. We'll talk about that for sure, how to make your emails shorter. But also there were very common questions related to vocabulary and phrases. So I'll be giving you those as well. And a lot of concerns were around how to email different countries or how to be polite when you don't know the culture or the language so much. And the third bit was, I found quite interesting, was how to make sure people do read my emails. Because if you write them, at least you want other people to read them. So we'll cover that. So this is what there is on today's agenda. We'll talk about how to write shorter emails, how to write polite emails, and how to get your emails to be read. And that translates to concise writing, which is not exactly the same as short emails, polite emails or email etiquette, and subject line and format, which are going to help you get that answer that you're looking for. By the way, I will send you all the slides at the end, so you will have all the information and vocabulary when we finish, so you don't have to worry about that. So the tips that I have for today. When we start with concise writing, this had to do with shorter emails, but I want to redefine a little bit what short means. As I said before, you all come from very different backgrounds, and so it's not the same what I consider short, another person might find too long. So what concise means is not to be short, but to say what you want to say with the words that you need, no more. Writing an email is about getting something done, not trying to win a Pulitzer Prize. So you don't have to prove that your English is great by using super fancy words. What you want is to write it as clear and short as possible. How to do it? A lot of my students, which I saw that a lot of you signed up. So a lot of my students start the email as they would start a diary. They start, hello, this is my story, how was your day? Everything is great, giving a lot of information, and then they get lost and the email starts being super long. And that can be a problem. So how to make your emails shorter or more concise? I would say start with the most important information and build your email how you would build a house. What does that mean? Well, a house, you would start with first the walls, then the furniture, and then some decoration. And what I mean by that is that don't start with the decoration and then put the furniture and then add the walls. How? First, think, why are you writing? And write it. Then think, what next? What next means, what do you want the other person to do? What's going to happen after your email? Or what do you want to get out of it? Then add the furniture. That would be the supporting information. What do they need to complete that action? And then you can take care of the decoration. That could be all the hellos, goodbyes, and thank yous. This is an example. The walls would be the why are you writing? So in this case, it would be, could I have or could we have a more in-depth discussion to talk about the changes in the HR department due to COVID-19? I am available on Monday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. That's the reason I'm writing. Start with that. And then the what next? Let me know what time works best for you. If you were to send an email just like this, it would already make sense. Start with the most important bit. For those of you who want some vocabulary, here are some phrases that can help you express why you're writing. For example, I am reaching out because, this is just a quick note too, this is a quick reminder, I want to let you know that, I just read your email about, thank you for your email about, or just give the information. As I said, we'll send you the slides so you can all have them and save them. And here's some vocabulary for what next, when you want to tell them what's going to happen. Well, can you please? Could you please is a little bit more formal. It'd be great if you could. If possible, I'd like to know more about. Please find my 2 main questions below. A strict question like, does 10 a.m. on Wednesday work for you? Or let me know if. Those could be very easy, straightforward ways of telling them what's going to happen. So again, that's the walls, and we have them. And now we need the furniture. What's supporting information? Where in this email, we wanted a more in-depth discussion. Maybe you want to tell them what you want to talk about. For example, there are a few things I want to talk about, and then you have 3 points. To provide information, you can use, sometimes you have an attachment, and you can just say find attached, or here are the details on, or to give you some background information, or to keep you in the loop, which is the same as to keep you informed, and is super common nowadays in business emails. What we need next is the nicer bits. Hi, Christina, I hope you're well, please, thanks, and Tina. When you're used to writing emails, you can do it in a different order, but I would suggest do it like we just explained. So like a house. first the what info do you really need? Why are you writing and what's going to happen next? Then the furniture is the supporting information, just the one they need. And if the explanation, if the furniture is too long, you can either attach something or send them the link where further explanation is given. And then you can add the decoration, the nice, hello, thank you so much, I hope you're doing well. And that's about how to put the email together. But then there's also ways that you can change your language to be more concise, as we were saying, to do it a little bit shorter. And it's these three ways. Remember that one word is better than three, actions are better than nouns, and active voice is better than passive. And this is what I mean. One word better than three. A lot of you like to write with very fancy and nice words, but for emails, it's better not to. So instead of there is the possibility that, you can just say might. Or in light of the fact that, you can just say because or since, and it has the same meaning. In reference to, it's the same as about. In view of the fact that, is just considering, with the exception of is except, and in the event of is just if. If you use them sometimes, the ones on the left in red, it's not wrong, but they're just going to make the whole thing much longer without adding any new information. So if you look at these two examples, we have on top, in light of the fact that we're all working from home, there is the possibility that we have to do the next event online. If you say the one below, since we're all working from home, we might do our next event online, you're given the same information, but with fewer words, and that's the whole point. What I meant by actions better than nouns is that in English, it's very easy to create verbs. So instead of put under consideration, you can just consider something, or you can give a decision, or you can decide. Conduct an interview is just to interview, and it is the opinion of is just think. For example, it is the opinion of the board that we should conduct surveys with our clients and put their proposals under consideration. I have to read this twice because it's long, it's not so easy to read, and it's just adding lots of words where you could just say it in one line. The board thinks that we should survey our clients and consider their proposals. And the last bit was active voice better than passive. If you're not so familiar with grammar, sometimes I bring this up in my sessions, and I look at the face of my students, and they're like, oh no, this sounds like high school. I don't want to do grammar at all. And I get it, I totally get it. I'm not a big fan of grammar lessons, but sometimes they do help. And what does it mean? Active voice better than passive. Passive is just much more complicated, and you end up writing longer sentences. For example, some new employees have been hired. That's passive. But if you make it active, it's just more clear and dynamic, and it gives accountability. It means you're saying who did it. So instead of some new employees have been hired, you can just say, we hired new employees. Or a new app was launched by them. You can say they launched a new app. If you're not too sure how to do this, there's two pretty easy tips. One is ask who did it and write that first. Some employees have been hired. Who hired them? We did. Okay, we. Or a new app was launched, but who launched it? They did. Then start with that. And then avoid using the verb to be, because that's just going to add up and it will become much longer. But there is a big but. As we said at the beginning, different cultures understand shortness in a different way. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I've received these answers. Okay. Received. Question mark. So say you wrote an email with a couple of questions and you receive okay. Okay to what? To the first question, to the second one, okay to everything or to nothing. Or you sometimes put together the perfect email. It's nice, it gives detail. You're asking or you're providing information, and then you get the question mark reply. Not only does it look unprofessional, but it's just very inefficient because it leads to a lot of misunderstandings. Once you send this email, then they will have to clarify, what do you mean by that? And then you will have a lot of more emails in your inbox, which is not something we usually want. So again, being concise does not mean too short, and you can be too concise. So be careful. When we were talking about earlier about building a house, don't only put the walls, but add some information if it's necessary, and then also be nice and polite. For example, here's an email. There's no need to read it now. You can read it later when you have your slides, but it's clear that there's a lot of information in there. That's probably too long, and the vocabulary is quite complicated. I would not recommend that one, but I would also not recommend the one on the right. And they do have the same information. It's all about a list with online courses for the team members that they have to choose from. So again, it's just a list with courses, and they're asking, hey, give it to your people, and they have to choose. But there is an intermediate level, a compromise between writing too much and too little. So how to do it? Start with the walls. Why are you writing? Well, I've attached a list with some online courses your team members can choose from. Then, what do you need next? Send them the list and ask them to decide by the end of the month. Cool. Furniture. Here's some extra information. And then the decoration. Hi, Max, I hope you're well, please, and thank you so much. Easy and quick. And the second block, as I told you before, is to talk about email etiquette. This creates so much anxiety. I always get my students, oh, but I don't know how polite I have to be, or do I have to be very formal, or am I being too informal? What if I email my colleagues? What if I email someone from the US or Singapore? So that's what we're going to talk about. It's important to be aware of the fact that this really depends. And there are differences depending on the country, depending on the region, but also depending on the company. So the way, for example, Microsoft sends emails is very different from the way they do it in a small company in China, for example. So we have to be very aware of this. And what I want to give you here is some pretty bulletproof tips or safe tips that will help you feel much more comfortable writing emails. So here we go. These are the points that I will cover. So how to start the greetings. Hi, hello, dear. What do we do? Names, the introductions, threats. This is also quite a common question I get. It's like, all right, I'm perfect at writing the first email. I followed your house, whatever thing you mentioned before, and I have it. But now we're having an interaction. Do I have to always add the decoration, or do I have to always say hello? We'll talk about that. Sign-offs is saying bye-bye. Emojis, yay or nay. Question marks, or in general, punctuation marks. And timing. Is there a time? Is there a right time or a wrong time to send an email? So that's what we talk about. But the best rule that you can follow is this one. Mimic your recipient. Whatever they do, you can do. And that's a very safe rule to follow. If they start with hi, reply with hi. If they send an email on a Saturday, you're usually allowed to send an email on a Saturday. But be aware of the power imbalance. So it's not the same sending an email to a manager or sending an email to a customer or sending an email to a colleague. Usually, the higher up you email, so the CEO of a company or your manager, the more formal you will have to be. And the more you know the person or the closer you are to them, the more freedom you have to be a little bit more informal. But mimic what they do. With greetings, this is a very common question. Do I say hi, hey, dear? In general, in the US, mainly in the US and in many other countries, starting with hi is totally okay, like hi, Max. But in many countries in Asia and across Europe, in some places in Europe, it's much more polite to start with dear Anna. If you're not sure, you can start with dear and see how they react. But in the US, as I said, it's pretty okay to start with hi, Max. And then after a few interactions, it's common to say, instead of hi, Max, you can start saying, hey, Max. And from dear Anna, after a few interactions, you get to know each other, you can go to hi, Anna. I would say don't go to the next step until they do it to be safe. Or if you do have a teacher that can give you some tips, then ask them in the specific context. But if you're not sure, stick to hi, Max, or dear Max, or dear Anna. And how about if you're emailing a bunch of people? Well, for the US, you can say hi all. And if you're not too sure if it's too informal, then stick to dear all. And it works very well when you're emailing a lot of people. With names, the way sometimes we're not sure, how do I call them? Do I call them Christina? Do I call them Tina? Do I call them Melanie or Mel? Start with the official name that they have, especially in the signature or on a website where you found them or on LinkedIn. And then look at the way they sign off. If they sign off with all the best, Mel, then in the next email you can tell them, hi, Mel. I always tell this anecdote where I used to live in Vietnam and work in Vietnam for a few years. And usually with dear, you say dear, yes, so with the titles, you usually say, hey, Mr. plus the last name, or dear Ms. plus the last name. So in my case, it would be dear Pasquale. But when I got there, everyone would call me, hey, hi, Miss Paula. Now that's wrong. But then who am I to get to a new company and change the whole habit or the whole culture that they have? So look at the way things are done in a specific place, and usually mimicking them will work very well. For the introduction, here's one way, or here's some vocabulary that you can use. I hope you're well. I hope all is well. I hope you had a good weekend. I hope you had a great trip. I hope you had a nice break, or I hope you're enjoying holiday. If you met at an event, it's super nice to mention that and bring it up. I hope you enjoyed the event. It was great to see you on Thursday, or it was a pleasure to meet you yesterday. Reference to something that they know happened. And the question that I get, especially from my Israeli students, is, I don't feel comfortable saying that. We don't say that. Do I really have to say these things? The answer is, if you don't feel comfortable, then obviously don't. But be aware of the fact that it is a very nice thing to do. And especially if you want to get something out of someone, starting off with a nice introduction will get you farther than not. So if you don't mind, add them, and the outcome is usually much better. But what happens with threads? You start with, hi, Max, and then you reply immediately, and you say again, hi, Max. But then they need some more explanations, and then you say, hi, Max again. And then they need to know how the program works, and then you say, hi, Max again, and again. Are you supposed to always say, hi, Max, and hi, Max, I hope you're doing well? Or hi, Max, I hope you're having a great day? No, you don't have to. Especially if the conversation is very interactive and active, there's no need, you can drop it. But then there's another question. When do you add it and when not? Follow the sun. If it's a new day, you can say hi, Max again. So you're following a thread and they take long to answer, or you take a little bit longer to answer because you're busy or because you live in different time zones. If it's a new day, say hi and the nicer things. And if not, you can just go straight to the message. It's still polite and it's completely fine. Just say bye. The best ones, the safest, are best wishes, best, all the best, thank you and thanks. Nothing can go wrong with that. Cheers can be a little bit dangerous because in the UK it's very common, but in some other countries it's considered too informal. If you're not sure, do not use it. And if they do, then as we said before, you can mimic them and start using it. But be a little careful with that one. And thanks in advance, I like it, but it's also not super safe because you are implying that the other person is going to do whatever you ask them to do, which is a little bit, you're assuming too many things. But if you're sure that the other person is cool with it, then thanks in advance is nice. Have a nice day and have a great weekend are probably my favorite ones, but only if you feel comfortable saying it. If not, best wishes best, and all the best are really nice ways to finish your emails. How about these? We have love, THX, what looks like regards, yours truly, respectfully yours, nothing, your initial, have a blessed day, sent from my iPhone. I don't know what you guys think about this, but I would say just know, better to avoid them altogether for business emails. They're not professional. Like really better to avoid them. And this takes us to the next question. How about emojis? Yes, no? As we said before, know your audience. Millennials are pretty cool with emojis and they can be fully awesome professionals, very competitive people, very apt, and they still use emojis and GIFs. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it as long as both people are on the same page and they agree on the use of emojis. Smiley face is sometimes nice, but be aware of what implications that can have. Emojis anyway usually live on Slack now that everyone's using Slack much more. Slack it's a little bit more informal. It's like the water cooler area in your company where you just go have a little bit of water and it's a little bit more relaxed. If your emails are aimed at your colleagues, it's okay. But if you're requesting something formal, avoid them altogether. Avoid emojis. Then about question marks. Here's the thank you message written in 4 different ways. Now, I don't know about you, but I would say 3 is a little bit too much, and I do not want to receive number 4. It might be a matter of perception, but thank you, full stop. I was talking to my colleagues the other day and I showed them this slide and they are like, yeah, we don't want to get it either. Except for a German colleague, and she said, there's nothing wrong with it. So this is also a cultural thing. Usually, thank you, full stop, is a little bit aggressive. I would say when you're using thank you, using one question mark works, but be careful with using too many. And the last bit about being polite, writing business emails, has to do with the timing. Can you send an email anytime? It depends on who you ask. If you ask me, I would tell you, if you can schedule it, if you know how to do it, it's not too difficult, but if you know how to schedule the email, it's nothing super urgent, and it really can wait until the morning after, I would say schedule it. It's nicer, because we all know that having an email unread in your pocket is like having something burning, and it can create a little bit of stress. If you can avoid that stress, great, they'll thank you later. If not, we all live in a very international world, and we all live in many different time zones. I think we are, at Talaera, we are in around 22 different time zones. And when I send emails to communicate something to all of them, it's basically impossible to be on point with everyone. I cannot send an individual email sometimes. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with sending emails 24/7. But as I said, if you can be a little nicer and you can adapt to the schedule, then that's great. That's everything I wanted to say about how to be polite in emails. I'll also answer some questions at the end. And there's something else that I want to mention from email etiquette, but that's the main information I wanted to give you. The last bit is writing easy and compelling emails. I want my emails to be read. How do I make people read my emails? Subject line and format are two things that I want to talk about. Subject lines. There is a red box and a blue box. The ones in the red box are 3, and I'm not a big fan of any of them. We have request, that's too broad. Help, it's also not giving any information. I need a 30-page report tomorrow by noon on the results we got from A/B testing the other day, thanks. Doesn't work. No one's going to read that. It's long, it's too long, and it's giving too much information. So how do you write good subject lines that people actually want to open? Well, take a few keywords, and the most important ones would go at the beginning. Write them first. What is your email about? For example, feedback on latest newsletter design. You know exactly what you're expecting from that email. Or quick question about sales report. Super straightforward. Or PR plan for WWF India. It's super clear what you have in there, and people already know what you're going to talk about, so it will be much easier for them to understand what your point is. Sometimes, well, I'll talk about this in a second, but sometimes we don't do what the email says for a very simple reason, and that is we just don't know. I sometimes get emails and it's like, all right, great. What? So people sometimes really don't get the point. Starting with the subject line and making it very clear. And what about this urgent that I wrote at the bottom? Can you use it? Yes, if it's really urgent. If you send me 4 things urgent a day, I'm not going to believe you. And then I will start, not giving it the priority that it might need. So use them sparingly, just when needed. This was one of your questions, by the way, exactly the way I received it. How can I draw attention to action items and make sure they're being read? Formatting. The email number 1, the one on the left, and email number 2 have exactly the same amount of words, the same number of words, the same information, and the same kind of explanations, the same level of formality, everything the same, except one thing, and that is formatting. The one on the left has everything packed, condensed in one paragraph. It's in italics, there's no spaces, there's no bold, there's no bullet points, there's nothing. A couple of years ago, I gave a workshop in Israel about business emails, and I was collecting a lot of information, and then I had a slide similar to this one, and I thought, do I really need to talk about formatting? And then I promise, the week after, I received an email from my gym. It was something about membership, and I swear, they sent me an email, just one line, in red, and with an impossible font. Please don't do that. Choose an easy to read font, Arial, Times New Roman, the one you like. Use different lines and bullet points and bold, and that way you will attract the information to that. So even if I don't have time to read, I know that something's happening, like a discussion on Monday, and I know that the sentence at the bottom is what I have to do. So formatting is very, very important so that your emails get read. And this was another question. Is it appropriate to write business emails in bullets and numbers? If everything is written in bullets and numbers, then no. But if the important information is presented in bullets and numbers, that's great. So just like this, writing only the bullet points would be considered rude and not professional. But if you have a nicely put email and then you add the takeaways in bullet points, perfect. And those are the 3 blocks that I wanted to cover. We started with how to be more concise. And so remember the hows, start with the most important information, add also what you want to get out of it, then add some extra or supporting information, and then the nicer bits. I also talked about how to be polite in emails and how subject line and formatting can help you get your emails read. But there were some very specific questions. As I said, how can I write shorter emails? Remember the walls furniture decoration, 1 word better than 3, so something like there is the possibility that is only might. Actions better than nouns, for example, put under consideration is just to consider. An active voice better than passive. For example, a solution needs to be found would be better to write, we need to find a solution. The other question was around vocabulary. I need more vocabulary. I told you that I would send you the slides, but also for those of you, there are a lot, for those of you who are students, you know how this is the platform that I was, I mentioned this before, this is where the sessions happen, and you also have exercises, students, you have a library. If you go to the library, you have a lot of information about business emails. And here you have 150 plus useful email phrases. So if you want to get some opening lines, here you have a lot of them. So if you're emailing first, or if you're replying to an email or apologizing, you also have body lines. So you literally have over 150 phrases. I will try to send you this as well so that you have it. And let's go with more of your questions. How to make people read my emails? As we said, use a good subject line, only add keywords. Use bold and bullet points, but as we said, not the whole email, just the most important information. Tell them what they're getting out of your email and what they need to do. Be very clear about that. Clear and concise, and use easy vocabulary. There's no point in using complicated words. Should I use idiomatic English or keep it very simple? This was a question of yours. Idiomatic is these kind of expressions that when you put the words together, it doesn't really make sense. They have a special meaning. For example, they do everything by the book. If you don't know this expression, what does that mean? Or we did this project on a shoestring. Is it talking about shoes? Or our marketing strategy is still up in the air? Where is it? Now, these are idiomatic expressions, and these would be the more literal or simple English. Instead of saying they do everything by the book, they do things exactly according to the law. Or we did this project on a shoestring is we did this project with very little money. Or our marketing strategy is still up in the air is our marketing strategy is still undecided. Now, should you use the idiomatic ones or the simple ones? Keep it simple. I would always use the simple English because people will understand 100%. If you're writing to a native speaker and you feel comfortable using idiomatic English, it's okay. It's very common. So you can use idiomatic expressions. But if you're not sure about the reader's level of English or if you're using it correctly, then avoid them. Avoid idiomatic expressions, jargon, complicated language. How can I write polite emails? If you forgot everything I said, these are the 3 things to remember. First, mimic your recipient, know your audience, and you can use dear across Asian, Europe, and hi in the US. That's very safe. And finishing with best wishes, best, and all the best. It's also great. How can I politely write an angry email? First, do not send an angry email. And if you do have to send an angry email, start with a polite sentence, and this will soften the whole thing. I'm going to go back to the first one. Do not send an angry email. I have had before classes with students and they were angry at the moment. I just came from this meeting and I really have to send an email to this person that did something really bad. Can we write it together? My answer is usually no, but if they really want to do it, then let's start with a polite sentence. Then begin with what do you want to get out of this email? If the answer is to just rant, don't write it. But if you really do want to get out of it, write it down. Then describe what happened as objectively as possible. What does that mean objectively? It means you need to change your language from emotional or subjective to factual or objective. And I have 2 examples. The emotional version would be, I think that the company unfairly fired an innocent employee. Think unfairly and innocent can be argued, can be discussed. You think, but maybe other people don't think. For you it's unfair, but for other people it could be fair. So the factual or objective version would be the company fired an employee. Another emotional version would be you failed to send us a good proposal and that's unacceptable. But if you want to be objective, you could just say, we need a proposal that covers XYZ. Please send us a new version. And then, super, super important, suggest possible solutions. And the last bit, don't send it immediately. Let it rest for a bit. Read it the day after. And if it still sounds good, wait a little longer and then you can send it. But if you follow all these steps, then it's a safe way to politely write an angry email. And those were your main questions. Now what? Well, I'm going to send you these webinar slides, and I also want to send you email phrases that you can just literally copy paste, the ones that I showed you earlier for the ones that don't have access to the platform. And we can also send you the link to a free book that we have. the content is completely different, but it's also on professional emails. And you will have other tips, especially around how to get more responses to your emails. And of course, when you write an email and you follow the tips, it's super important to get feedback. But sometimes, especially now with everyone or most people working from home, it's very difficult to ask a colleague, or sometimes you also ask a colleague and they really don't know the answer, or either they don't have time or they really don't know how to help you. And that's exactly what Talaera can do. And if you really want to practice with a teacher and you need to work on your business email, say, hey, I've done my homework. This is what Paula said. Did I do it correctly? You can reach out and you can try. We can give you all the information, and you know, that way you can just work on exactly what you need to work on. As I said before, it could be emails or your pronunciation or your actual presentation. Hey, I have a presentation. Can you give me some tips on the vocabulary, the delivery? We can totally do that. And before we finish, if you're still around, I want to give you a massive thank you for joining. And I would really, really love to hear your feedback. I'm super curious to hear what you think, and I really hope you found it useful and you didn't get too bored. Anyway, again, as I said, thank you so much. These are our social media handles, and if you want to say hi or just come, we share content for free on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, so you can obviously follow us and get all that free content. And have a great day. We'll be in touch. Bye, everyone.